So I think we've got about just under 10 minutes for questions, and there is a roving mic if anybody has a question. There's somebody at the back there.
We have one at the back here. Sorry, we're behind the screen.
Hi, question for Andrew. Are you keeping OERs in your fixture repository? Are you keeping OERs in?
Obviously, yeah. We're open to them, but I don't think we have any yet. So, yeah, I mean, one of the advantages of fixture, it wasn't really a key requirement of what we were setting out for with the tender, but it is good for having a mix of items. It kind of, as Claire said, it can take most sorts of deposit and has the fields and the capabilities for anything. So it could certainly take that. We haven't pushed that so far.
Sounds good. Yep.
This is for Conul. Fair play. It sounds like quite a bit of work that you've done. I was just wondering, when are you going to ask for a colleague?
Yeah, interesting question. I think, actually, on a serious note, I think the college never had library or librarian before, as I said, so they didn't really, I suppose, know what we do or what we don't do. I think in terms of expansion, we are going to grow in the next few years, and in terms of getting a new colleague, I think the key to that will be keeping very good statistics and keeping a log of hours and work I'm doing, and just basically probably at some point maybe making the case that saying, well, maybe I can't do this on my own because A, B and C on the stats, and go into management with that. But yeah, I might give them a few weeks.
Hello, Christoph Schmitz-Cyprian from Trinity College, Dublin. Question for David, sorry, on the copyright. You mentioned that there's a residual risk, and I think you said, in terms of controlled digital lending and so on, you said libraries would be on their own. So, obvious question, I think, is there, in your view, a role for Conul or maybe the RIA here to band together and say, we're doing this together, we're carrying the risk together. If one of us gets sued, you're not alone.
I think somebody just has to be, like somebody who sees like a gap in the way they mediate their holdings and wants to provide digital access should probably just go ahead and do it. Maybe not overcommit to it, just to see how it goes. But I think the principles are fairly clear. There's always a balance between the right holder's right and the right of users. So copyright, that's what copyright is there for. And as long as you don't go outside of the principles that seem to be quite clearly laid down about, like for example with the dedicated terminal thing, you're not supposed to digitize a whole collection. It doesn't say how much you can digitize, but it's got to be within the normal bounds of what you're allowed to do with resources generally. Personally, I think that, well, it's easy for me to say, but the risks are limited. But when you see where somebody does stick their neck out, it seems that the people who are taking the decisions in the courts are very amenable to reasonable uses of reasonable exploitations, and especially they understand that, like I say, they understand that the changed technological environment that we live in, and what people practically do. They sit at home or in a cafe or whatever. They don't necessarily want to come to a location, so it's a change where we're living in, and I don't think there's a huge risk personally. And can Conul, possibly, I don't know, we've talked about it a fair bit in Conul, but I think it's really down to individual libraries. Somebody just go ahead and crack it and see how it pans out.
Hey, Killian from NUI Galway. This is for Andrew, I think, and I'm interested in the deposit from the CRIS to Figshare and the human component on the workflow end, as in checking metadata. Is that something that you do now? Is it, does it take a lot of work?
I mean, it's not too different from before, really. So yes, we take the approach of validating everything. So the library staff does check every deposit, just because because we want to, I guess, because we want to feel that we have that quality control. So yeah, you wouldn't be able to, I don't think you'd be able to automatically tell a record coming from Elements whether it had come from Scopus or where it had come from originally, because they could have manually entered it there. You will tell by looking at the details once you're into it. So at the moment we take the approach of still validating all items. So, but obviously if it's come from Scopus, there's a lot more metadata already there, so there's less work to do on it. But yeah.
Yeah, I think we've got time for maybe one other question, if anybody wants to ask a question. No, I think, well, just, I suppose, I just want to say a couple of things based on the speakers at this session and just the speakers in general at the conference this year. So I really found that just to hear about how good we are as information professionals at sharing knowledge with each other, and it was great. I think it was Colin mentioned in his talk today that he had received help from various people in this room, and I think that we are very good at knowledge sharing, and it's great for opportunities like this that we can link in with people and hopefully follow up on things as well. So that just struck me throughout the conference. So I will ask you all to thank our speakers again, and just to remind you, the next session will be on, we'll have the quiz winner, and we'll also have a panel discussion and conference close. So if you'd just like to join me in thanking our speakers.